Clifton's thumbnail caught the edge of the blue seal tape. He pressed down on it, feeling the resistance, the tight adhesive that had been applied by a federal paralegal 90 minutes ago in a room he did not have clearance to enter. "Put it down." He looked up. A woman in a gray cardigan and plain black slacks stood across the desk from him. No panic on her face, no trembling in her hands, nothing in her expression that suggested she understood her position in this room. Just the sentence, delivered the way someone delivers a sentence they've already said too many times to too many people who weren't listening. "Ma'am, I suggest you let me." "I've already suggested. Now I'm telling you." Her voice didn't change register. Same temperature, same weight. "That is a sealed federal evidence portfolio. You are not authorized to open it. The moment you break that seal, you cannot unbreak it. I am giving you one final opportunity to put it down." Clifton looked at the portfolio in his hands. He looked at her. He looked at the canvas tote bag hanging from her chair, the reading glasses tucked into her collar, the small pull in the wool near her left cuff. He had been director of security at the Aldcroft Hotel for 19 years. He knew exactly who belonged in his lobby and who didn't. He pressed his thumbnail harder under the corner of the tape. "You had your chance," he said. She said nothing. She sat with her hands on her knees and watched him the way someone watches a fire they already know they can't stop, but have documented from every angle. He pulled. Have you ever watched someone pull the floor out from under their own feet with both hands and a smile? Because what happened in the next 60 seconds in that hotel security office changed more lives than Clifton Baird ever imagined when he lifted that portfolio off a woman's knees and decided it couldn't possibly be what she said it was. Drop a comment, hit like, and let me take you back to where it started. 43 minutes before Clifton Baird made the worst decision of his 19-year career. The Aldcroft Hotel rose 42 stories above Michigan Avenue in downtown Chicago, all black glass and brushed steel, and charged $620 a night for its standard rooms. Its lobby floor was Jerusalem limestone, pale gold and cold underfoot even in summer. The chandelier above the main desk was made of 1,200 hand-blown glass drops, each one lit from within, casting a light that was simultaneously warm and clinical, the kind of light that makes expensive things look more expensive and cheap things look out of place. Rowena Ashby did not look like she belonged in it. She was 47 years old, medium height, with close-cropped natural hair going silver at the temples. She wore black slacks with a slight crease down the front, a gray wool cardigan, and flat-soled shoes in dark brown leather that had been resoled once. She carried a canvas tote bag from the Art Institute gift shop, the kind with a hopper print on the side that cost $15 and lasted 10 years. Her only jewelry was a thin silver watch and a plain band on her ring finger. Reading glasses were tucked into her collar. No perfume, no statement bag, no silk anything. She arrived at the Aldcroft at 9:47 in the morning, showed her credentials at the private elevator bank in the East Corridor, and rode up to the 14th floor, where the hotel's executive conference suite had been reserved for 6 days by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Illinois. The room did not appear in the guest directory. The legal team working inside it had signed non-disclosure agreements before entering the building. Rowena had authorized every page of those agreements from an office in the Dirksen Federal Building 6 months ago. She spent 40 minutes on the 14 reviewing the completed portfolio she had come to collect. It was thick, bound, organized, dense with 22 months of investigative work, financial records, surveillance photographs, sworn depositions from 8 witnesses, wire transfer documentation routed through 4 shell companies. A paralegal sealed it in her presence with a strip of cobalt blue federal seal tape running across the top closure, smooth and continuous. The tape read in gold print, U.S. District Court, NDIL, sealed by order. Embedded beneath the tape at the left corner was a pressure-sensitive microchip, no larger than a postage stamp, that would transmit an automated alert to the U.S. Marshals Service field office 4 blocks away the moment the seal was broken. Rowena tucked the portfolio under her arm, collected her tote bag, and took the private elevator down. Clifton Baird was standing near the front desk when the elevator opened. He was 52, broad across the shoulders, With a fresh haircut he got every 2 weeks and a navy suit with the Aldcroft crest on the lapel. He carried himself with the posture of a man who had spent nearly 2 decades deciding who could go where and who could not. He knew every service corridor in the building, every freight schedule, every floor plan. He knew which regulars tipped their bellman and which ones didn't, which celebrities had stayed under assumed names, which VIP suite had the broken window latch that facilities kept forgetting to fix. He also knew, without ever having named it aloud, which people looked correct in a lobby with Jerusalem limestone floors and a chandelier worth more than most cars, and which people introduced an anomaly his eyes felt obligated to resolve. 3 formal complaints lived in his HR file. 3 times, black women who were guests or clients of the Aldcroft had reported being stopped in the lobby, questioned about their presence, followed to the elevator by security staff matching Clifton's description. 3 times, hotel management had reviewed the reports and closed them. The Aldcroft prided itself on discretion. Formal complaints against senior long-tenured staff had a way of becoming form letters and then filing cabinet additions, and then, eventually, nothing. Clifton watched the private elevator open. He watched a woman walk out carrying a portfolio under her arm and a canvas tote over her shoulder, heading for the main entrance. No room key visible, no hotel envelope. She had come from the restricted elevator, the one that required override authorization, and she was walking through his lobby like she had every right to be there. He moved to intercept. "Excuse me, ma'am." She stopped and turned. Not startled, not braced, just turned, the way you turn when you've been expecting the interruption. "Yes?" "Clifton Baird, Director of Security. Can I ask what floor you were on?" 14. "Your room number?" "I wasn't in a room." His eyes moved to the portfolio under her arm. The blue tape caught the chandelier light. "What is that?" "A document portfolio." "Is it hotel property?" "No." "Where did you get it?" "I retrieved it from the conference suite on the 14th floor, where I was authorized to be. If you'd like to confirm that authorization, you're welcome to call the U.S. Attorney's Office, Northern District." He stepped slightly to one side. His voice stayed professional, even pleasant. "Ma'am, I'd like you to come with me for a moment." He said it the way people say things they've said 1,000 times, in the tone that makes cooperation feel like the only sensible option. 2 additional security officers had appeared at the edges of his peripheral vision without making a sound. A young man barely 25, new enough that his brass buttons still shone, and a woman in her 30s who kept her eyes on the portfolio and not on Rowena's face. "All right," Rowena said. She went with them. The security office was 12 feet by 10, tucked near the main entrance, smelling faintly of coffee and the AC unit running too cold in October. A monitor bank, a metal desk, 2 chairs designed by someone who believed comfort was a security risk. Clifton sat behind the desk. Rowena sat across from him with the portfolio on her knees and her tote bag on the chair back behind her. "The portfolio," Clifton said. "I need to understand what's inside." "It's a sealed federal court document." "That's a broad answer." "It's a precise one. I've been running security in this building for almost 20 years. I've seen people walk out carrying things that weren't theirs, with very thorough explanations." He leaned his forearms on the desk. "What I haven't seen is someone come off the private executive elevator with official-looking documents and not be willing to be specific. I've been specific about what I'm able to tell you. They are sealed federal court documents. I am not required to provide further detail. I'd like to search your bag." "No." He blinked. "Excuse me? You don't have legal authority to search my personal property. You are not law enforcement. I am not a guest of this hotel. I have not consented. The answer is no." Something shifted behind his eyes. Not quite anger, something closer to recalibration. In 19 years, most people who ended up in this chair with his shoulders on the other side of the desk went through a predictable sequence. Irritation, then anxiety, then the particular surrender that looks like cooperation. They pulled out receipts, key cards, identification, telephone numbers, anything that might make the situation smaller. They apologized before they'd been accused of anything. They talked too fast and said "sir" too often, and made themselves as legible as possible. This woman was not doing any of those things. She sat in the uncomfortable chair with her hands on her knees and looked at him like he was a form she was in the process of filling out. He called the front desk manager. The manager called up to 14. The paralegal who answered confirmed that a woman matching Rowena's description had retrieved the portfolio and departed approximately 12 minutes prior with full authorization. Clean chain of custody. No discrepancy. Clifton set the phone down. "Can I go?" she asked. He should have said yes. Every data point in front of him said yes. Verified access. Authorized retrieval. The situation was resolved. He had nothing. But the portfolio sat on her knees, sealed and official and heavy, and something in Clifton, 19 years of an instinct he had never once stopped to examine, would not let it go. "That seal," he said. "I've never seen that particular seal used in this building. That's because it's a federal court seal, not a hotel seal. I'd still like to take a look at it." He reached across the desk and lifted the portfolio from her knees before she could pull it back. She let him take it. She didn't grab, didn't protest, didn't move. She just watched him take it, and then sat exactly as she had been sitting before. "I would like that returned to me," she said. "When I'm satisfied." He turned it over, heavier than he'd expected. The blue tape was tight and continuous across the top, the gold print sharp under the overhead light. He ran his thumb along the edge, then pressed it down, testing. "Do not open that portfolio. I'm looking at it." "You're pressing the seal. Stop pressing the seal and put it down." Clifton looked at her, the reading glasses in her collar, the museum tote bag, the cardigan with the pull near the cuff. He thought about the private elevator she'd come off of. He thought about the 3 complaint files that had been resolved and forgotten. He thought about 19 years of knowing the difference between someone who belonged and someone who was pretending to. He thought, if it's legitimate, opening it proves it. "I am telling you," Rowena said, and her voice hadn't changed pitch or temperature once in the entire conversation, "that what is sealed inside that portfolio is evidence in an active federal case. Breaking that seal is a criminal act. I'm not saying this to threaten you. I'm saying it the same way I'd tell you a stove burner is hot. Not to frighten you, but because the consequence is certain and I've given you enough information to avoid it." He stared at her. She stared back. No bluff in her eyes, no desperation, no performance. Just that flat, steady patience that belongs to someone who has already calculated every possible outcome of the next 30 seconds and made her peace with all of them. "Then why," he said slowly, "are you so calm?" "Because everything that needs to happen is already in motion," she said, "has been since you picked that up." He worked his thumbnail under the corner of the blue seal tape. "I warned you," she said. He pulled. The tape came back in one long strip. The portfolio opened. Pages slid onto the metal desk with the particular sound of very expensive paper on a cold surface. Clifton picked up the first page. A photograph taken from the far end of the Aldcroft lobby. Date stamped 19 months ago. 2 men near the concierge desk, one in a business suit, one in a dark overcoat, in the middle of an exchange that the angle and the timestamp made unambiguous. Clifton recognized the marble floor. He recognized the chandelier. He recognized the concierge desk. He recognized one of the men. He turned the page. A wire transfer record, 16 months, 4 shell companies. At the bottom, highlighted in yellow, Aldcroft Hotel Group, LLC. He turned another page. The header read, "Sworn to push, Aldcroft Hotel Group, financial misconduct and municipal contract fraud, co-conspirators." He read the name at the top of the list, Martin Stahl, his employer, the man who had personally told him, on 2 separate occasions, to use good judgment and handle sensitive matters quietly. The man who had approved every internal complaint closure for 19 years. The man who was, at this moment, 2 floors below in the hotel bar, on his second bourbon before 11 in the morning, unaware that a federal evidence team had been in position outside since 9:30. Clifton turned the last page. A single sheet, a notice of evidence portfolio filed under seal, chain of custody verified as of today's date, authorized retrieval by Honorable Rowena G. Ashby, United States District Court Judge, Northern District of Illinois. He read it once. He read it a second time. His hands had gone the temperature of the desk under them. The pressure chip beneath the torn seal tape had transmitted its alert 47 seconds ago. Rowena didn't say anything. She sat in the chair with her hands on her knees and let him read until his face did the reading for her. When she spoke, it was quietly. "You had my federal judicial credentials for 6 seconds before you put them face down on the desk." Clifton's mouth moved. Nothing came out. The door opened. Addison Park, the young officer with the bright buttons, stood in the frame. His face was the particular color of someone who has just heard something they cannot unknow. "Sir," he said, "there are U.S. Marshals at the front desk, and there are 2 more at the bar entrance." The lobby went still when Rowena walked back through it. Not silent. The check-in desk murmured. A bellman moved luggage near the door. But a particular hush had settled over everything, the kind that descends when something official and immovable has entered a space, and everyone in it can feel it without knowing why. 3 U.S. Marshals stood near the concierge desk. The lead marshal, a lean man with close-cropped gray hair and a federal badge on a lanyard, crossed the lobby in 10 steps. His eyes went immediately to the portfolio under Rowena's arm, the torn seal tape hanging loose from the flap, and something in his jaw tightened. "Your Honor, are you all right?" "I'm fine." "We received the breach alert at 10:34. He looked past her at Clifton, who had followed her out of the security office and now stood 2 steps behind, as if physical distance could manufacture separation between himself and what he'd done. "You opened a sealed federal court evidence portfolio." "I didn't know who she was." "She told you who she was." The marshal's voice stayed level. "She handed you her credentials. She warned you 3 times. Addison Park's body camera captures the full sequence." He turned back to Rowena. "The Stahl detail moved when the alert came in. He's at the bar." Martin Stahl had been working his way through the second bourbon of the morning when 2 federal agents sat down on either side of him. He set the glass down carefully, with the precise deliberateness of a man who understands that everything from this moment forward will be watched, documented, and entered into a federal record. He did not say anything. He looked at their badges, then at the table, then at the glass he would not pick up again. In the lobby, Clifton Baird was placed under arrest at the concierge desk, where guests had checked in for 19 years. Under the chandelier he had walked beneath thousands of times, while a marshal read him his rights in front of the Jerusalem limestone walls, and every guest who happened to be passing through the Aldcroft lobby at 10:41 on a Tuesday morning in October. Addison Park's body camera had been running from the moment Clifton intercepted Rowena at the elevator. It captured 41 minutes and 17 seconds of continuous footage. It captured the credentials being placed face down on the desk. It captured the warning twice. It captured Clifton's thumbnail finding the corner of the seal. It captured his face when he read the last page. It was entered into evidence at trial 6 weeks later. The trial opened on a gray morning in November. Rowena testified for 2 hours on the second day. She described the investigation, the portfolio, the chain of custody, what had happened in the lobby and in the security office. She described it without embellishment. Dates, times, exact words, exact sequence. No commentary, no editorial. Just what had happened in order at what time. The prosecution played 41 minutes and 17 seconds of body camera footage on a screen facing the jury box. The courtroom was very quiet for most of it. A juror in the front row, a retired schoolteacher from Woodlawn who had grown up on the South Side, pressed her lips together and did not release them for a long time. Another juror, a man in his 50s who worked nights at a logistics company, looked at Clifton Baird once during the footage and then kept his eyes on the ceiling for a full minute after. Clifton's defense attorney argued that his client had exercised reasonable security judgment in response to observed anomalies and had not known he was dealing with a federal judicial officer. He characterized it as a regrettable misunderstanding rooted in professional diligence. Judge Anita Mbeki set her pen down on the bench and looked at the defense attorney with the expression of someone who has been waiting for an adequate argument and received something else. "Counsel," she said. Judge Ashby presented her federal judicial credentials at the point of first contact. She identified herself by name and title. She stated twice, clearly and specifically, that the portfolio contained sealed federal evidence and that opening it would constitute a criminal act. She told your client the consequence before your client acted. She paused. At what point does "I didn't know" stop being an explanation and start being the point? The jury deliberated for 4 hours and 51 minutes. Clifton Baird, guilty on all counts: obstruction of federal proceedings, tampering with sealed court evidence, unlawful detention of a federal judicial officer, 4 years in federal prison, permanent disqualification from any security or law enforcement role. Martin Stahl, guilty on all counts: money laundering through the Aldcroft Hotel Group, bribery of public officials, conspiracy to defraud the federal government, 11 years forfeiture of all hotel holdings and subsidiary accounts. 9 additional individuals were indicted in the following weeks: 2 city aldermen, a commercial real estate partner, and 6 financial intermediaries whose names appeared across the wire transfer records. The Aldcroft Hotel Group ceased to exist as a legal entity 4 months after the verdict. The hotel itself passed into federal receivership pending liquidation. A woman named Tilda Norris testified on the 3rd day of the trial. She was 53 years old, a hospital administrator who had been a client of the hotel's conference facilities for her company's annual board meeting. 2 years prior, she had been stopped in the lobby by a security officer she later identified from a photograph as Clifton Baird. She had been questioned about her room number, asked whether she was meeting a guest, and followed to the elevator by 2 security officers, while her colleagues watched from across the lobby. She had filed a formal complaint the following week. She received a form letter 2 weeks later. She sat in the witness stand in a dark blazer, with her hands folded on the rail, and told the jury what it felt like to walk into a building she was paying to use and be treated as evidence of something that had not occurred. She discalling the front desk manager and being told someone would follow up. She described the form letter. She described deciding not to bring her board back to the Aldcroft the following year, and the explanation she gave her colleagues, and the look on their faces. "I didn't stop believing things like this could be fixed," she said. Her voice was steady. "I stopped believing I was the one who could fix it. Those aren't the same thing." She looked at the jury. "I'm glad someone else was." 2 other women testified. Both said, in different words, some version of the same thing. They had filed their complaints and watched them disappear, and eventually made the adjustment that people make when a system teaches them repeatedly that it is not listening, and then something had listened, and they were still figuring out what to do with that. 12 months after the lobby, on a Tuesday morning in October, Rowena parked in a garage off Michigan Avenue and walked back to the Aldcroft. New management had taken over, an Atlanta-based hospitality group that had won the federal liquidation bid 8 months ago. The limestone floors were the same. The chandelier had been cleaned and relit. The concierge desk stood where it always had. A new bellman held the door. A new front desk manager moved behind the counter. She stood inside the entrance for a moment. She looked at the spot near the private elevator where Clifton had first intercepted her. She looked at the door to the security office. She looked at the chandelier dropping its warm light across the limestone in the same pattern it always had. She had been appointed to the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals 7 months after the trial. The confirmation hearing had been brief. She had moved offices, taken on a different weight of work, a different altitude of cases. She still drove a modest car. She still carried the hopperprint tote. She thought about the portfolio under her arm that morning, the weight of it, the blue tape, the cold of the security office chair. She thought about the way Clifton had lifted it from her knees without asking, without hesitation, with the full authority of someone who had spent 19 years learning that certain people don't need to ask. She thought about watching him find his own name in the evidence he'd ripped open to disprove. She had not been trying to make a point. She had been retrieving a portfolio on a Tuesday morning because she was the authorized officer and the chain of custody required her presence. The point had already been made over 19 years by every complaint that became a form letter, every internal review that became a closed file, every encounter that taught someone their word would not be enough. She had simply declined to perform the part Clifton expected. She had stayed still and let him choose. She had known what he would choose. She had documented it from every angle and waited. She thought about Tilda Norris on the witness stand. I stopped believing I was the one who could fix it. One person had not stopped, had walked into a hotel lobby on a Tuesday morning in a gray cardigan and flat shoes, carrying everything that needed to be carried, and stood inside the weight of someone else's certainty, until that certainty broke under its own pressure and showed everyone in the room exactly what it had been made of. Rowena walked toward the door. The new bellman held it open. She said, "Thank you." He nodded. A small exchange, the kind that only qualifies as ordinary when the structure underneath it is sound. She walked out into the October sun on Michigan Avenue and headed north, and didn't look back. Have you ever been in a situation where someone made their decision about you before you could say a single word, where the most powerful thing you could do was stay still and let their assumptions do the work? Tell us in the comments. We read everyone. If this story moved you, hit like, share it, and subscribe to Velvet Reckoning, because the next story is already waiting.